Good morning, everyone. We'll give everybody just one more minute to get back and settled from their break and then get started. All right, good morning. Welcome back to the Family Partnership Work Group. I think we have a couple people who this may be their first time in the work group. If so, if you weren't able to participate last month, do you mind doing a quick introduction of just who you are and what organization you're with and why you're interested in family partnership? I'm Megan Cluth, by the way. I'm the facilitator of the group.
Hi, Megan.
Hey.
I'm Mallory Orlano, and I work for Newman University, and I'm an instructor there and in charge of our Early Childhood Unified program. And I just watched the recording yesterday to kind of catch up to see where you guys ended and everything. So I kind of knew and took notes on what you guys did to kind of help out. And I wanted to be a part of this group. They both sounded great, so I just kind of said, put me wherever. But I don't know. I feel like this is one of my passions I've previously been an early childhood educator. And so just partnering with families was one of my favorite things, and just making them feel welcome and on board with everything. Because a lot of you know that a lot of times education can be kind of intimidating for some families. And so we want to just make sure to let them know that they are part of the team, when we have our meetings, and that we need their insight too. So I just want to be part of that group because of that.
Great. Thank you, Mallory.
Hello, my name's Heather Staub, and I am the Infant Toddler Services Education and Outreach Coordinator for the state of Kansas, out of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And I'm excited to be on this group. This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. I spent about 15 years in the childcare and early learning realm. And then the last 5 years, I've been over here at KDHE in Part C. I love the first 3 years are my most favorite, but I love early childhood. It's such an amazing time, and what a great opportunity. And family engagement. I had a daughter that received early intervention services, which really kind of made me desire that shift to work at the state. But our experience with Part C and knowing just what families sometimes are going through during those early years, I just really, this is, like I said, near and dear to my heart. So I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Heather, for sharing that. Who else is new? Who else is this your first time attending this group?
So Megan, I wasn't able to attend last time you met because I was working on the CCDF state plan, which we're still working on. But I am Nichelle Adams, but a lot of people just call me Nikki. And I'm with the DCF department, the Department for Children and Families. I'm the Early Education and Child Care Services Manager. So I manage staff that handle most of our Child Care Development Fund related activities throughout the state, which include Child Care Assistance Program, and then contracts with Child Care Aware. We help pay for the licensing. We help pay for casitos, professional development, just a whole lot of things. But the reason that I wanted to join this specific group is because with child care assistance, there are a lot of people out there that are eligible income-wise and that don't participate. And to be honest, what we struggle with is knowing the information from the people that aren't at the table, right? We can get information from people that do participate and all of that, but what we struggle with is getting all voices from all parents across the entire state. And so that's part of the reason I'm here. We're working on some RFPs and studies and stuff to help us, but we also know that with lots of our projects like Links to Quality you just heard about, we want to have the families there and at the table, but we understand that doesn't work with people's schedules and, you know, all the things you guys all know. I'm not going to preach to the choir, but everything we're going to talk about, I'm sure.
Thank you, Nikki. And then Callie.
Yes, and I apologize. I don't have a camera. I can flash it on and off, but I lose internet connection if I try and pull all the cameras going at the same time. So here I am. I'm in red for Chiefs. I'm in my 22nd year with Parents as Teachers. I started off as a family while I was working as a nursing home administrator. Thought this seems like a lot more fun. Shifted gears, went back to school, got a little more education, and became a home visitor, and then a coordinator, and currently am the executive director of the Kansas Parents as Teachers Association. So this is right up our alley. We serve families and know that families working together, making those connections in our communities is what makes Kansas better. So that's why I'm here.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, I think that's everyone. Did I miss anybody who was not here in August? Great, great. Well, we have until 11:05 today, so we will dive right in. And for those of you who were not here in August last time, I think you'll get to know. I know some of you already know each other and work with each other, but I think you'll get to hear about the different perspectives people are bringing, I think both personally and professionally to this group. And we certainly have a diverse group with a wealth of knowledge and passion. There's not a lack of passion for family partnership in this group, which is great. So I'll do a quick overview of the agenda, and then we are going to try something a little more interactive today. Can you all see the agenda? Perfect. Okay. So as a reminder, I am the facilitator with the Center for Public Partnerships and Research at KU. We have Heather Smith and Cora Ungerer from KDHE are joining our group as content advisors. And thank you so much to Gail Cozad and Crystal Henry for volunteering to be our co-chairs. So we will all work together to put the agendas together before each group that you can see. And then Gail and Crystal will take turns doing the report out to the full group. So Gail, I believe, is doing that today. So we're going to, last time we started with a few discussion questions, particularly around how we gather input from families and through data collection, surveys and events, and what's effective and what's challenging. And so we're going to continue with some of these questions to just get a sense of what your experiences have been and see if that helps us identify some gaps. So we're going to do that using a Jamboard, which I'll share my screen for that shortly. And then the hope is that you can interact with that and put your thoughts down in a little bit more visual way. So we could easily spend probably days with these questions. So it is going to be pretty quick today. For the sake of time, we'll spend about 20-25 minutes getting through these questions. And then the goal for the end of today is to really narrow down what do we feel like in the next 2 months this group can select as a focus area. So that may be developing a more formal recommendation to share with the full panel, identifying areas where we can coordinate with other work that's happening throughout the system. We talked a little bit about that last time and can certainly do a refresher or share some possible ideas on the agenda here. A few possibilities have been highlighted. There's also a link in your agenda to the strategic plan audit, which is, it's a lot of information, I will say that, but you can kind of get a sense of what's happening related to family engagement and partnership across the early childhood system. And if something stands out as, oh, it feels like something that this group could have a role in, this would be a great time to share that with the group. So we'll talk more about the specifics of that toward the end of our time together. But I did want to note that it might be helpful for you to have the agenda up if it's handy. Particularly, there's some information about like what the specifics of a recommendation would look like for the panel for those that haven't seen that process in action. So with that, we will switch to the Jamboard. And the link to the Jamboard is in the agenda. Does anybody need it? Everybody able to access it if you'd like to participate. If you're not familiar with it, hopefully we can do a few test runs and get people familiar with it. Yes, I will.
This is Natalie. Last time I took notes, I just want to check. Do you need me to take notes again, or are we going to
Thank
stick
you
with
for
this?
clarifying. So we're actually going to try, because we're using the Jamboard, we're going to try that as our note taking,
Okay.
and then we'll go back and put those in more formal. I appreciate the ask, and we may take you up on that in the future.
All right.
But we really want everybody to be able to participate actively, and so we thought we'd give this a try and see how it goes. And then, of course, we're recording, so we've got all that. Okay. Somebody already added to the Jamboard. That's great. Okay. So if you're not familiar with Jamboard, what you can do is, looks like a lot of people are joining, is there's a little sticky note to the side here, and you just click that. You can make it whatever color, and then you just type in and then move it around. There's not a great way to kind of emphasize if people feel like they agree with somebody else, but I think the best way, if we would like to do that, like if you see somebody's note and you say, wow, they really captured everything I was going to say, there is a little pen tool over here, and you could make like a little tally mark, or that's not a very good tally mark, but some sort of mark indicating that you like it, or we can certainly just have a discussion about that as well. So we have a few guiding questions here. Use this as a guide. If there are other things that come to mind, this is really our brainstorm time to be putting some thoughts into, in your work and in your experience, what's been most important to you? When you think about family partnership, what does that actually look like in terms of, what do those words mean to you? And then what does it look like in practice? I'll give people just a couple minutes to start putting their thoughts down, and do not feel like you have to have a really, perfectly well thought out idea or thought. We've got some great additions. Does anybody want to share what they've written?
Hey, Megan. I centered mine around like just understanding what partnership means. So if you have a partner or someone you work with, like relationship wise, you both are on the same page, and having, an equal amount of support with each other.
Lots of checks for agreement. And feel free to answer any of these questions, or if you have other thoughts that don't fit in these questions, you can, there are multiple color options. Some common themes across the questions are trust and transparency, and truly having like two-way communication and helping families see the impact that they can have on the development of programs and services. Also trusting that parents know their kids the best. As you're adding the gaps, that seems to be where people are shifting, just keep in mind, thinking about what are things that you feel like this group could potentially do to help address those gaps. All right, I'll give about 30 more seconds or so to add to this one, and then we'll move to our next question. Anybody have any final thoughts either for the board or to share with the group before we switch?
I haven't read enough to know if this is a theme, but one I read not only gathering input, but appreciating their input. And I think that's such a key piece, that, you know, if a parent has taken time to give input, but don't feel like they were heard, that's going to further disenfranchise and almost create more hurt than anything. So the appreciating the input is even maybe more important than providing the opportunity in the first place.
Absolutely. I think one of the most agreed with statements is up in the upper right, putting action behind parental recommendations and suggestions. I think that speaks to that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, these links will stay open. So if you think of something later in the day or you want to be able to come back to them and process, I know it's hard to type and read and process at the same time, particularly with only a few minutes. So these will stay open and we'll continue to come back to them. So our next topic area is program design, and specifically, you know, if somebody's creating a program or service or trying to get information about changing it, what does that partnership with families look like to you, or what do you think it should look like? So thinking about timing of when families should be brought to the table, what does that engagement actually look like in practice? And what are other factors that staff need to consider about the timing, or I think also just the logistics of that? Maybe it's that's the actual time of day that you're having a feedback collection effort, or maybe it's, you know, we talked a lot about like food can be a helpful tool. Obviously, that's a little bit more challenging in the pandemic right now. So take that in all of the different ways that the kind of logistics and factors can mean, and we'll give everybody a few minutes to respond to this, and then we will debrief, and then we'll have one more after this before we start thinking about focus areas. We'll do about 1 more minute on this board. Does anybody want to share their thoughts as we're wrapping up?
This is Heather, appreciate the when programs and services are being created or changed, when should families be brought in, and everybody, you know, that in the beginning, as early as possible. I think that sometimes we pull in parents or families too late, and then a lot of decisions have already been made, and that puts them in a really awkward and also kind of a diminished role. And so I really like that.
Thanks, Heather.
Sorry, this is Dana Schatz. Can you go over again? How do I put the little check mark if I agree?
I have to be honest, I actually didn't know you could do that. So
Okay, I thought
I have
maybe I
learned
missed
something
something.
through this process.
If you click on one of the check marks that's already there, you can copy and paste it. So just click on somebody else's and copy and paste, and then just hit like copy paste, and then you can use that.
Nice, thank you.
I'm gonna speak to the this is a tough one. I think but you're right. This is hard. I think it's not just about the intention, it's about how to do it. And so I would say hold that thought and be thinking about what could help address that. You know, are there things that could make it maybe not easy, but a little bit easier? I know somebody mentioned on the last slide, one of the gaps they see is professional development around how to do family partnership. So is there something that this group might be able to work on to make it a little bit less tough, or to help other people understand that it is challenging and there's, you know, something a lot of people struggle with? All right.
Can I speak to family partnership for just a half a second?
Of course.
It's relationship building, and anyone who runs, I'm the director of the Women's Community Y, and anytime you run a child development center of any kind, it's a relationship with the family. You are caring for and educating their most precious cargo. And many times professionals sit in meetings and, oh, this is going to happen and we're going to do this. And we forget to bring the families in early because we don't know how to say, this program is going to change. Okay. So many times it's how firm that relationship is with that family. And are they willing to hear whatever it is you have to tell them?
Thank you, Lisa.
That's, you know, that's kind of where that's at. It doesn't matter if it's an ASQ or what it, you know, what is the relationship? It's the same situation with the classroom teacher. What is the relationship between the family and the professional?
Thank you for that perspective. All right, our last topic before we start thinking about our focus areas is leadership. So, you know, when I think this could be leadership, engagement, partnership, what do those terms mean? What is when we say parent or family leadership, what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you? And then are there programs that you're aware of throughout Kansas? And then where do you see opportunities to increase either more leadership programs or more avenues for more families to be part of them? So we'll take 4 to 5 minutes on this board. One more minute on this board. Does anybody want to share anything as we wrap this one up?
I would just say that I feel like there's a lot of opportunities, but just inviting parents in, like personally inviting parents in, often is all we need to do to get them involved.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, well, again, these boards will stay live. So if you think of something later today or next week that you want to add, feel free to go back, or feel free to just go back and take a look at this. I think there's a lot of great ideas and information here that we can all benefit from. So we'll take the next, we've got just under 20 minutes. We'll go back to the full panel at 11:05. So let's talk about what this group would like to focus on over the next 2 months. The idea is to think about between October and November, what's some sort of outcome. So think about, based on what your experience has been in terms of needs that you see, things you saw on the board. We put a couple guiding questions up here about, thinking about where are there existing connection points and resources that could be strengthened or maybe scaled a little differently that you see that could help communities or stakeholders that are interested in family partnership get involved. I know when I had a discussion with Gail and Crystal earlier in the week, the conversation of how can childcare providers get more information about family partnership and how to learn more about it. I think, again, the professional development idea came up earlier on the board. How can organizations and communities just know how to get started? I know in other parts of my work, I get that question a lot about, like, where do you even start? Like, it can feel overwhelming. So is there some sort of information that could help with that? I will say we talked a little bit about this last time. Heather and her team at KDHE are going to be leading the development of a family partnership toolkit. And so there is some opportunity, which we can talk more about if there's interest in at least being aware of that, if not, helping to provide a little bit more feedback or insight into that. Another idea that has come up with some of the other family groups, like the family leadership team and family advisory council, is would it be of value to talk about a proposed Kansas definition for what family partnership means? I think we saw, based on the sticky about what it means to you, is there's, people have different language around it. So would it be helpful to think about common language? So take a few minutes and think about, throw out any idea and things that you think this group could focus on.
This is Heather. I just had a quick question. Do we on this subcommittee have any people that are participating with the family lens solely? Like I feel like I can wear two hats sometimes. Like, I am involved in Part C early intervention, but I'm also a family member. But I feel like sometimes it's also really beneficial to have people that are I'm still part of like the state structure, like I love my family lens and I will always carry that. But I also have a different viewpoint. I don't want to say it's skewed, but I feel like I'm on the inside of like a lot of the systems work. And so I feel like it's a very different perspective if you're a family member and you're not participating in some of that stuff that other way. I don't know.
That's a great question. And I appreciate you asking that. So yeah, everybody in this group has, I think many people can bring their family perspective as well, but also do have, the professional hat they're wearing. And I think that question comes up a lot, is like, where is that separation? So I will say, and Heather, feel free to jump in if you feel otherwise, but there are certainly strong connections within this group to the Family Advisory Council and other family groups, and certainly other people on this call work very, very closely with their families. And so I think we can absolutely talk about ways to make sure that we're connecting with families throughout this process.
That's awesome. I always just get like a little itchy when I start to feel about or talk about like, what do families need and want, and what are their viewpoints on things, and how can we be more connected in things if we, if that link is missing. So
Absolutely. I mean, I think our previous post-its about when do you engage families
Right.
very clearly to that point. So I appreciate that question. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind is, given we meet monthly, like, are there things, where would you like those connection points to happen? And we can talk about kind of the logistics of that. So we have some different resources that are being shared, which is great. I think one question I would have to the group is, do you feel like those are well known? Is that something this group could be thinking about as how to increase awareness around that or access? Or do you feel like that's really, really well known across the system? So our common themes I'm seeing are the professional development and resources. I don't know if this is like an awareness campaign or just other language, but the idea that, all parents struggle and there's the good and the bad days. And so the removing stigma speaks to that as well. There's a question about, is it possible to have all, like one location listing all types of family and parent groups? Yes, that is something that is in the works to be developed. That's something that the family leadership team has been talking about as well. And so the specifics of that are still being figured out. But I think the kind of helping families know what's available and organizations know what other agencies are doing for groups. That's a great idea. A one pager for how families can get involved. A few people talking about incentives or stipends for people to participate.
I'm just curious if someone, or if the person who put in equity and expectations might be able to expand on that. I'm just interested in the expectations piece, like, yeah.
Yeah, that was me, Esther. I think sometimes it might be easy to expect a parent, for example, with a child who has multiple exceptionalities, to be more involved. Or it could be the opposite. Oh, that our child is very involved. They shouldn't be expected to be involved. Or, different cultures, involvement in school is important at different levels. And just, I don't know, sometimes I think it's easy to think the most involved family is what a family that's involved in so much, and just that equity across people and not having expectations that they should be more involved or etc. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, with our last few minutes, we've got some great ideas here. Is there anything that really stands out to you as, oh, this feels like something this group could work on over the next 2 months?
This is Maritas. I like this one where it says, could we create a one page for families and how they could get involved in leadership roles? And I can't see, it's too tiny. Roles or blank opportunities to become engaged.
Or listing opportunities to become engaged.
Yeah, the other one is also, what about those organizations that would like to have a parent engagement, or, is there a tool that they can use as a guide? Is there a toolkit? Is there a family engagement toolkit? Where do we start as an organization to be effective?
So as we mentioned, there is Heather Smith, who's with us, and Cora and her team are leading the development of a toolkit over the next several months. I think that there are certainly opportunities to, if this group would want to focus on like a one-pager or part of that, or just being supportive of that. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of complement what's already in the works.
And I'll just make a note about the toolkit. That's actually been something we've been talking about with our Family Advisory Council for about a year now, where they've been informing like, what might we want to do? Why would that be helpful? What would we include? So families have been in on that conversation since the beginning, since that idea was dreamed up. And the purpose for us to do it is to create something that can be a support to our local grantees and our partners on how to increase family engagement at the local level through some of our Title V and maternal child health work. So that's the lens we're coming at it from, but we know family engagement isn't specific to maternal child health and all of that, like the concepts around engaging families and putting more priority on family engagement is much more cross-cutting than just our population stuff. So we're super interested in anybody that wants to be part of that work with us. We would love to have you at the table. And if this work group wants to be part of that, we certainly would love to support that in any way that we can. But I just wanted you guys to know families are involved in it. We're not going to create a family toolkit on how to engage families without families telling us what they want. So just so you know.
Thanks, Heather. All right, we've got just one more minute before we are due back for the full group. Does anybody have final thoughts? I mean, we can definitely take some time to sit with this. I know this is quick, and think about what we'd really like to start focusing on in October.
I'll just speak up a little bit. That KPARC tool, the Family Engagement and Partnership Standards for Early Childhood, is a really nice tool. It also gives an opportunity for programs to reflect on how they're doing with family engagement. And I think it can be a really useful tool for any program.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, again, feel free to revisit these boards, keep thinking and adding. We will put all this into notes and think about the best way to help our group kind of think more about like what do we want to be thinking about and talking about in October. So we will follow up with you likely next week. But thank you so much for your brainstorming today. I think this has been a really great tool, and thanks for teaching me something about Jamboard as well. I appreciate that. And we will see you all in the main room and hear Gail report out.
Thanks, Megan and everyone.
Of course, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Megan. Oh, she left.